Okay, we can begin now. Sorry for the loud sound. Welcome to this 15 meeting of the GDC meeting. I hope you all are having a great day. It's COVID, and I heard it's getting a bit stressful. But don't worry, we are all together in this GDC amazing server. We are here to talk to each other. So, in case you need any help, in terms of even someone to talk to, I sound like a therapist right now. Please bear with me. It's just for saying informalities, but please join the GDC. You can talk it out in GDC. We have a great community of people. Everyday people are joining, and a lot of you guys are doing the the debump, like the server bump, and I really thank you, because without that we couldn't have got to 200 people in the server. So I really thank you guys. The way how server bump works is there's this website called Discord, and basically on that site, when you put that command, the bump, and it's successful, first of all, I compensate you, I give you 300 XP, and you could level up from that and get more abilities in the server, progression stuff. And then in return, you're helping us as GDC come into the main page of this big server called Discord. And Discord is a place where if you're ever wondering what servers to join, you don't know where you want to go, all the servers that are listed on Discord are usually very good, and they also have their own ratings. So in the end, maybe in one of the assignments by the end of today, which I'll discuss about, you're gonna have to, maybe you could consider spending some time rating our Discord server listed over there, so it can help others feel more confident when they join our server. All right. But yeah, so let's just give some meeting recap about what happened last class. Okay, so basically we just continued on the idea of audio clips, right? So we and I see you guys doing that Discord thing. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we just basically coded with audio. We basically we went along with it. We try to go inside the code in depth, like how to do some conditioning with audio, when to play when. So we only wanted to play the audio, which was the thrust sound effect that we got from freesound.org, which is available in the resources panel. And basically the thing is, from there you could do whatever you want. So you wanted to specifically play that thrust sound effect only when you press the space button. So we went through the code and learned some cool ideas on that as well. We also went along with learning switch statements, another technique, and in conditioning. It's pretty cool. But yes, we went along with coding with audio, with thrusting and stuff. We did switch statements, which was another technique that we found out when we developed our games. When you're making a lot of conditions just for one variable, you could use switch statements to ease out your process and coding. It's a really great technique that you should get along with. We also learned about the syntax, especially for the switch statement. Then we also basically talked a bit more about on the side of mono behavior and what Unity engine is. I wanted to explain last class that the C# in Unity is completely different than the idea of C# itself. If you're gonna make programs by C# itself, it's gonna be very different compared to the coding that you'll do with Unity. Okay. But yes, I was trying to explain that mono behavior is that kind of class in Unity that's helping you to actually just basically simplify your work life, because Unity is a place to make games, not to go more directly to the computer and become that kind of enthusiast. I know a lot of you are computer enthusiasts, so am I, but the thing in Unity is the point of having that engine also is to basically simplify your life. And mono behavior is that class, as I mentioned before in that meeting, that it's just that thing that allows you to use void start, void update, on collision enter. It's these things that's made by Unity. And without mono behavior, you can't do that. So the syntax with mono behavior is completely different than when it's just C#. For instance, you could just print out messages by saying maybe debug.log or just typing print. Whereas if you just go to C# just alone, standalone C#, if you go to Replit or go to your Visual Studio just by itself, like an IDE, it's actually going to be console.write line, which is completely different. So I wanted you to kind of know that distinction between mono behavior and how it really changes and brings a huge impact to the Unity engine itself in terms of coding. right? And then also we use tags to give different conditionings using switch statements, like tags and switch statements. We learned about tags way before in like the first project we made, so we did kind of have a solidified view on that. We also learned how to reload a level using seed management. I did already kind of teach you how to use seed management, but I did not specifically teach you like how to reload back. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, because like in the previous project we talked more about like just really collision, what it is. But now we're trying to use collision in a more like practical way possible in the gaming world, which is basically like when if you hit an obstacle which you're not supposed to hit, you reload to that level itself. Eventually today we'll add more onto that, like proceeding to the next level in a more effective way, and also reloading levels just back to level 1, which was really where we wanted to go. Because the way I'm going to design this game, and you can change it, please do make your game as unique as possible. How I'm going to integrate this game, or basically make it, I'm saying integrate a lot of times to sound really professional, I'm really sorry, but I really wanted to say that, okay, if you're on level 2 or on level 3, if you die on any level, you're going to go back to your first level. Sounds very terrifying and very evil from the perspective of gamer, so they might look like, hey, you're just an evil man trying to ruin my life. Thank you. But what I'm trying to say, you could change it if you want. Like you could maybe like say, okay, if I die at this level, let's just respawn at that level. Let's give these gamers some grace. But I'm not like that. I love to make gamers cry and break their PC, because it happened to me when I played, Flappy Bird and stuff when I was young. And then we also talk about case sensitivity, like the main reasons why we don't use tag or really any certain, type of options in Unity. It's really basically upon that big idea, which is case sensitivity, because a lot of these things require string reference. Remember, string reference is like calling something based on a string, and anything that's within a string usually has to be, and maybe not usually, most of the time very likely has to be case sensitive. And that's really the main reason, or the main common cause behind like a bug or something in your game. So that's why, to avoid that kind of issue, people tend to go away from that. And we'll talk more about this case sensitivity today once we start learning about Invoke. More on that later. And yeah, and obviously, that at the end, I kind of I wasted your 20 minutes of time trying to understand what's going on. I'm really sorry about that, but finally we ended up finding the solution that it was supposed to be lowercase. It was supposed to be capital O, not lowercase o in on collision enter. So very, very much thank you very much to IQ for realizing that solution, so I don't brain freeze myself or basically rot myself to death. Anyways, let's talk about today's topic, the things that we'll talk about today. I know I'm really like hyperactive today. I think it's because I just drank coffee. I'm really sorry. But so what I'm going to talk about today, first of all, is basically how to, kind of go back to the idea of overriding your instances to prefab to get that good practice that, if I want to apply a change that was on an instance and change it to all of the instances in other environments in my Unity project, we should do that all the time. And usually this always happens when you're going to apply something, especially to some sort of serialized field variables. Remember, serialized field is anything that's on your inspector panel and you manipulate it. They're basically just variables. It's just that you could see that on the inspector panel and basically go very nitpicky with it, just like a gold digger. Anyways, we mentioned this in two previous videos regarding this topic, so we can talk more about that later. We're also going to integrate how to make levels in the game. And yes, RR, you already taught us. But let me tell you something. I didn't teach you some cool features that's offered into this, stuff. I haven't taught you some stuff, like some cool programming statement commands that could really, really, really simplify your life when you're trying to go between levels, especially when it's your last level and you want to go back to your first level. Usually it's very confusing, and it kind of your code becomes a bit messy and a bit unorganized if you don't know the right way to make that stuff happen, or really knowing the right commands. And that's why you're here in GDC, to learn. I should stop drinking coffee. After that, we'll also learn how to load levels via switch. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is basically like we already did this, but we're going to use that idea of how to, go back to levels, but using it in switch, right? And in switch statements. And then we're going to learn a bit about invoke, which is a bit about, you're still going to get it, but the hint is like, it's just delaying a method to extend it. We'll learn more about that when we want to, in obstacle courses, I'll explain it later. And then we'll talk about Boolean states to fully understand and comprehend how to, essentially create like some conditions. Like when you're transitioning, you don't want your sound effects to overlap each other, because you just only want one of that sound effect, not all of them happening at once. So in other words, when you're dead, you don't want to be moving in your game, you don't want to be doing anything else in your game, and usually the best option to that is using something like a Boolean statement, really. And we'll learn more about that once we start making code on this. Okay, let's actually begin now. So also, one more thing, in our, if you check the keynote, I didn't really add a lot, because most of the content today is better to be seen if I explain it to you like visually and also verbally. And really, it's kind of a waste of time if I kind of make these slides on it, because you'll also ask, like, why did RR waste 2 hours of his time making these keynotes, right? When really, it's just self-explanatory if I taught here in front of you. All right, so let's get right into it and hop into Unity. All right, so you could see me. You could see my screen, my beautiful, beautiful screen. So right now, you're going to be assigned, if you saw the assignments tab, I will still go into it at the end of this meeting. But basically, at this point, and maybe like by next class, you should try considering to have multiple levels in your game, because now we're going to be accessing, scene management. So we want to travel between different scenes. You can make it like nothing right now. You could at least make some scenes and have like not a lot of stuff in it. But like maybe in the future, once you start, sending your projects and doing that game jam competition for this particular project, and earn a lot of, rewards, as I said, then you could consider editing from there. So first of all, what I always want to do when we start a project, let's go to our prefab, which is the rocket, and let's go to the overrides, because we added so many things to this. Okay, so if we are going to go to level 2 per se, it is not likely that this thing would have all the changes made to that first instance. Now, lucky for me, I just duplicated this and changed it to level 2. All right, so that's why usually, everything is secured. But let's say you made another whole new scene, and then you drag the prefab to that environment, to that particular scene. You're not going to get all the things that you changed in this. For instance, it won't have audio source, and let's check what else is in the overrides. It won't have that changes in your box collider. It won't have that collision handler script, which is responsible for, doing particular actions when it has touched a certain tag, right? So if I touched an obstacle, it should perform differently than when I touched the gold cube, or when I've touched things that are friendly, like this blue cube right there. So that's the idea. So what you want to do to fix that problem is just click on overrides and apply all. If you still are confused about this, just check that previous video. Timestamps are attached in that video, so you can just quickly hop into that and learn what it is. And now we're good. So let's just check overrides again. And if it's like no overrides, then we're good to go. All right. So the first thing is we want to make something where if I go from here to here, right? So let's try considering to play the game, first of all. So what we did in like our last class, right, according to our logic, is we made some sort of switch statements. So if you could, let's go to the console in the meantime. And the idea is once I, once I touch this green cube, which is considered that, gold cube, and I touch it, it says in this message that I've popped up. And then if I've like touched something that's, an obstacle, I go back to the previous scene. We did this. But then, like let's say when I touch this gold thing, I want to proceed to the next level. So let's go back to our code. Let's see what to do. So which one over here is really essentially responsible for, well, at least which tag over here specifically is responsible for like, saying that you're able to go to the next level? Well, it's this case finished, right? So what we can do is we could actually make a method, basically. And if I am not wrong, I have taken some screenshots of my previous code so that I don't screw up this. All right. Basically, just type something called load next level. Now, you always know every method ends with a parentheses. So we just put a parentheses in the end. But you're wondering, why isn't this well highlighted? It's because I didn't make the method. So let's make that method. So let's say void load next level. And basically in this next level, we want to be, doing something that's really essentially responsible for going to the next level in your game. So we should have some sort of variable, right, that stores what the current scene that person is in. So what we do is we type int current scene index, and then it equals the scene manager.getActiveScene.buildIndex. This is just basically what we did in reload level. And what it's responsible for, as I said, is just finding the index number for that specific scene. Now, if you're wondering what a scene build index is, well, just to give a quick recap, if you go to File and you go to Build Settings, you're going to see that there are scenes in Build. Now, the thing is, I'm kind of dumb. I did not add this new scene to my build settings. So I'm just going to drag it and put it here. And you can see on the right side that there are these numbers, which are your build indexes. And we're going to access each of the scenes through its build index. So we're just adding it by 1, right, to go to the next scene. So basically, to do this, we want to just make another variable, which is responsible for saying next scene index. And that's basically saying, well, it's the next level, right? So you just take the current scene index plus 1. It's that simple. So this index, which is with this variable, which is the next scene index, will store the scene that's right after the current scene. Basically, the index of the scene that's right after its current one. So that's that. Now you might be asking me that, okay, hey, right now what we want to do basically is we want to load the scene of the next level, right? So then let's actually do that right now. So scene manager dot load scene, and then you basically just type the next scene index, because that index stores the next level's build index. All right, but then you're gonna be asking me, well, what is that thing you talked about? That cool thing that I did not teach you yet. That if I'm on the last level, like let's say for instance I am. Now it's gonna take time again to load Unity. It didn't. Okay. So if I go to build settings, and let's say I was on level 2, right? So right now I only have like 2 levels, and probably you might in the future have 5, 7 levels, who knows? Doesn't matter how many levels you have, but let's say you were on that last level. Now, what is 1 plus 1? Well, 1 plus 1 is 2, right? And the thing is, we don't have a build index 2 in our scene. Like we didn't create any. So we're gonna get some sort of error in your code when you're on level 2. So how do we do that? If it's the final level in your string, not in your string, but in your scene, if it's the final level of your game, how do we go back to the first level? Well, what I did back then was that I made an if statement that if the build index is 1, then we just go load the first scene in the game. But I want to teach you something that might save your life even more, or make you understand and appreciate more about Unity's algorithms. So basically, we want to say that if the next scene index and equals sign, because we're comparing stuff, we're not assigning stuff here. If it equals to scene manager, right? Scene manager dot scene count in in build settings. Now, what this is responsible for, the scene count in build settings, we're just basically going directly to Unity, which is build. We're just counting the number of things there are. And if we have some sort of, value, some sort of build index that is greater than what is contained here, this entire length of build indexes, then we will automatically do something. We will just do whatever is done here. So for us to finish that statement, we basically just need to say that the next scene index is 0. It's the first level in the game. So let's actually try doing this. We did that. So we basically made a method for any we're going to call this method called load next level, which basically loads the next level and goes back to the first level if the current, if the value of the next scene index is greater than the length of that entire build settings, right? That is provided in the build settings. And that's all done if this rocket has touched an object that's like a goal cube. Okay, so let's actually try this. Let's see if this has worked. So let's do some play testing to see if this was true. All right, so if I touch the green object, I have to be very careful. You can see that I've gone to the next level, which is level 2, as you see right here. But now let's go to level 2, which is the final level, in your game. And you can see that I came back to level 1, right? And like if I touch, this blue thing, It's a friendly object, so I won't get hurt. Whereas if I, touch an obstacle, I'm gonna go back to level 1. Right? So now we fixed that thing, that loading level thing, which is a very, very important asset when we are talking about, uh, basically like just in general how loading level works, and basically a more effective way to load levels in your game. Okay, so now we're done with this level thing. But before we talk about before we talk about this topic about Invoke, which is the next topic we'll literally discuss about through our keynotes, I wanted to explain why we're talking about Invoke at this moment, why we want to apply Invoke in this current state in our game right now. Why is it today? Why not yesterday? Why not, maybe not yesterday, but why not last week? Why not next week? Why is it particularly today's meeting that I wanted to specifically talk about Invoke? So let me give you like an example. So if I play this game, right, you can see that when I'm playing with this rocket, if I, touch an obstacle, it right away goes back to level 0. It right away, if I go back to the code itself, which is, default, reload level. Default basically means if I touch any obstacle, basically. And it's just immediately calling this method. Right? But usually in some games, you kind of want that delay, as if you get the feeling that you crashed and you get that oh no effect. You kind of realize it. So in other words, it's kind of too quick for the player, the gamer himself, to basically express his reaction. And it kind of just like, let's say in some sort of sense, it kind of ruins the player's experience because of that. You need to allow to give some time, some latency basically in terms of this area to basically give that gamer a sense of reaction. Because we have a delay in reaction always. So we could say like we want some sort of 2 seconds reaction. Some reaction to some extent. And that's what Invoke is here to talk about. We can basically, the idea of Invoke is to basically delay a method. It kind of delays the method itself, and it gives that delay effect, essentially. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do that right now. Let's start learning a bit about Invoke. So I'm going to start the slideshow now. Okay, so let's actually learn about using Invoke. Basically, Invoke is like that thing that allows us to call some sort of method, and it executes it after, not before, but after a delay of some number of seconds. And in this scenario, it's like a variable x. So x amount of seconds, it's going to delay that, and right after that x amount of seconds are completed, it's going to execute that method that you want to call. Now, you might be asking me, what method? How do you call that method? But this is how the syntax works. To understand how to call it, you need to understand its syntax because it's pretty much self-explanatory from there. Basically, how it works is you just type this thing, capital I, Invoke, in parentheses, because it's a method, really. You string reference. You use string to reference the method name. Now, this is what I've been talking about, which was essentially referencing things to string. Right? And it's kind of a problem, and I'll explain why. But then on the comma, after you type comma, that's the delay in seconds. That's the X amount of seconds you want to delay that method to be called. Okay, and now let's actually talk about the pros and cons. The pros is it's actually very quick and easy to use. It's very simple. Just type Invoke, type the method name, and then type the delay in seconds. Once you start getting the use of it, the knowledge about it, and you'll be pretty much quick at learning where to type what instead of going on the internet or taking some time to remember and recall like where to put what. However, it's a string reference. So that means it's very case sensitive whenever it's string reference. So if you haven't capitalized things correctly in your code, it's going to be a problem. And you don't want problems in your code. You never, never, never want to have problems in your code. And this is why coders tend to avoid using Invoke, especially Unity developers, because Invoke has a lot of bugs usually. It's not really by like the way it's integrated, but really how its syntax works. It's string reference. And usually when you don't capitalize things correctly, that's the main cause behind getting bugs in your program. And having more bugs just waste your time essentially. That's why people don't use Invoke, and that's why they use coroutine. But on the other hand, right, it's not as good as coroutine because it's not as performant. We're going to learn more about coroutines later in our next project, so don't worry about that now, but it is kind of similar, but not entirely the same. So it's very different when you start learning more about it, and you'll be able to distinguish between them once you start learning about that in the next section. So just keep in mind like whenever you learn about that soon. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just basically going to use Invoke to both delay the next level and also whenever you crash around the environments. You don't want to crash and then suddenly, like suddenly just go back to that level, like suddenly restart. You want to give some delay to the player, as I mentioned. So how do we do that? Well, we have to use that syntax to parameterize our delay, basically saying that you just input how many seconds you want to delay into that method. Anything that's within the commas, like inside of that, is just considered a parameter. And basically the idea is when we reach that pad, that goal pad, that green color thing, we want to have some delay before we load the next level to get that success effect, to give the player some time to achieve what they did. And then also another thing that we need to definitely do is stop the player controls. As you can see, if you were looking at the videos I've been making through this game, you saw that I was able to move when I crashed. Not for a quick amount of time, but yes, I was able to move. So you want to stop the player controls as well. Okay, you want to completely stop, as if they have no control over that rocket at all. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna go back to Unity and see what we want to do. So basically the idea is we have a rocket here, and whenever it moves, if it touches this, you want some delay and then go back to that current index it's on. Similar for this, if it's going to touch this green pad, you want to give some delay for it to get that success and then move on. Okay, so let's actually go back to our code over here. So let's start off with the case of a default thing. Like, how should we do things here? Well, we already have this thing called reload level, which basically says that you want to, call this current scene index and basically load that scene again. But what if you use invoke on this? Well, if you use invoke on this, yes, it's gonna work. It's gonna work according to how much delay you want, but you won't be able to disable your movement. So there's another catch to this. Basically, what you want to do is you want to not call the method here, but rather make a new method and call the reload method in that method using invoke. Okay, so let's actually call this like start destroy sequence, or maybe just start destroy. All right, what start destroy will do is it's going to initiate that delay to go to the next level. So let's just type our method start destroy. All right, so let's try to do some stuff. Okay, let's try to comment out stuff to get a fair idea of what you want. And this is actually a very good idea. Some people wanted some tips on how to code better, how to think better in coding, and really it's starting by commenting out what you're doing to really get that brainstormed idea of what you're trying to do, and that comment will guide you into making a better program to keep you on track and focused to find the real answer to your problem. So let's actually try to figure out what we want to do. Well, first of all, we want to disable character control. Right, we want to disable that. We can type control if you want. And then after that, you want to delay level load. Right? But there are also some things that we'll also do today using multiple audio clips, such as, for instance, adding an S effect, adding a sound effect. And this is why making a new method and putting the reload level into this gives you more benefits. You can do more and more stuff with whatever you want to do. Right? And then eventually, we could also add particle effect. This isn't a foreshadow. It might be a foreshadow. Who knows? But eventually, before we end this section, we're going to learn about particle system. Neither am I going to confirm or say anything, but it's right there. We could do that if you want. Maybe in your own project, you could. We could also be learning about it. Okay? We could be learning about it. We're just probably saying that we are going to learn about it. Okay? Okay, so let's actually do the first thing, which is to delay the level load. Well, we know how the syntax of invoke works. You basically type invoke, and you put a semicolon there so that you don't make any bugs in our program, and then you string reference the thing you want to call, the method you want to call. What I recommend anytime you need to do string reference, just copy paste it rather than typing it out, because usually that's the main way and the reason why you get bugs in your program, because you didn't spell things correctly when things are string referenced. All right? And then we want to also put an X amount of seconds of how much delay you want. So actually, instead of like you know, having a fixed number, let's try to serialize field. Let's try to go to Unity and play along with it. Especially this will be helpful for you depending on how you want to customize your game, how much delay you want it to give, and maybe perhaps in the future the user themselves could also decide in the game how much they want to give delay on. And we'll learn more about that once we start learning about how UI works, how buttons work. It's gonna be a fun thing. We're gonna learn that in possibly one or more projects later. Okay, so let's actually type level. You could call it whatever you want, but I'm gonna call it level delay. Okay, right now it's white because I haven't made a variable at all. So let's actually create a variable. Now, if you guys don't know how to serialize thing, you just type serialize field, and you basically type int, and in the integer we're gonna just type level delay, and we're gonna make this 2 for now. Okay. And basically that just allows you, so whenever you're going to invoke, it's going to delay that method for 2 seconds and then call it. Now, okay, another thing is you want to disable character control. Now let's go back to Unity and let's understand what's really responsible for moving the rocket itself. So for that, usually what you should always do if you're ever stuck in problems like this, go to the inspector panel. Okay, and it feels like just a movement script, right? Because if you go back to our code, go to movement.cs, you can see that we made code for the space bar, rotation, all that kind of stuff. So essentially, this movement script is responsible for moving the character. So let's actually go back to the idea of what we did last time. How to basically disable things. It's basically this check mark, right? If I uncheck it, that basically means this thing won't be used in the object itself. That means it won't move. But if I check it, the script will be applied to the rocket, and the things you did to it will happen to the object itself, whatever it's attached to. So we could try making use of that. We already know the idea of what getComponent is, so let's try applying that in this scenario. So let's select this comment and try doing something about it. Let's do getComponent. And we know that anything that's within this, the arrow things, you want to call the name of the class basically. And class in this scenario just basically means the file name. For us, it's movement. All right. And then what we type is we have to put parentheses, and then we type .enabled, and we could change it to true or false. But what if you want to disable the controls? That means we have to set the enabled thing to false, so that it's unchecked whenever you call this method. So we need to make it false. Okay, so the idea is we just called this class movement. We didn't instantiate an object. We just basically got the component movement, and we got that one of its properties, which is enabled, which is this check mark right here. And we just set it to false. Whenever this method is called, we just .destroy. And it makes sense because if you go to this .destroy method, it's only called whenever you're touching obstacles, which is definitely the case when you want to disable your controls. All right, so let's go back to the code and game test this. It seems like we have a compiler error already. So it feels like getComponent does not exist in this current context. And it's because I'm a Dumbo. I forgot an O. All right, so let's go back. And I think it should be gone. Yep, it should be gone. And let's play it. And let's test it. All right, so let's actually touch an obstacle and see whether we are able to disable the character controls and also get some delay. Let's try that again. We got a delay, right? It did not go back that quickly. We got a delay. So that delay thing worked. Now let's see whether I'm able to use a spacebar once or my controls whenever I've collided with an obstacle. So let's just do this carefully. No, I can't. I can't. So that's good. That's a really, really good thing to start to. So we fixed that using Invoke. We basically just used Invoke to delay the reload level method call. And the reload level again is just basically responsible for going back to the original, scene, to whatever your build index was. Okay, so we're good here for now. We're actually very good. We're progressing real fast. So let's see if there is anything else to do. Well, now it seems like we've added so many things here. And we have something that's missing, okay? The thing is, remember this thing over here? If I go to collision handler, there is this thing called adding sound effect. Well, because of you making a new method called start destroy, we could do basically anything we want. You could just add whatever you want in your sound effects and basically make that happen. Okay, so yeah, I think that's how it works. So let me just check if I'm missing anything, so and then we can move on. Okay, so it seems like what we can do, and the way you want to figure out is, first of all, the first step is to get the sound effects. If you don't know where to get the sound effects, you can always go to this website called freesound.org. Okay, so if you go to freesound.org, you're gonna get all the sound effects here. You have to log in to download it, but trust me, it's not virus. It's completely working. A lot of developers use it for their sound effects, and they're pretty decent. And if you're just trying to make your fun game project, this is the best place to go. All right, so let's go back here. The thing is, I already got these audio clips. I got a sound effect whenever I wanted to collide with this, and I also got a sound effect for this. And speaking of, calling these things, we forgot to do the same thing for the case finish. So let's see if I did anything wrong. I don't think I did anything wrong. Yeah, basically what you can do for so I forgot to do the same thing for finish. So once you progress to the next level, it does the same. You can just basically paste this and you can just call it start success, and then you could just change the case finish to start success. So first of all, I'm gonna copy this thing, and I'm just gonna put that here, load next level. Oops, that's the wrong place. Oops. It's right there, start success. And we can just call that method basically, which is start success. Like that. It just simplified our program even more. So yeah. So the idea is what I taught you in the previous classes. Let's go back to the audio thing. I'm sorry I'm backfiring everywhere today. If you go to audio source, we imported some sort of audio clip. Right? And that audio source is responsible for doing whatever it wants to the selected audio clip you chose. But what if you have multiple audio clips in your game? Like, for example, we have one sound effect for like a boom sound effect whenever you touch any obstacle. But then you also have another sound effect for a goal. And it's not really likely that you could put all of it in one audio source component because there's only one selectable option. You can only choose one sound effect out of all of them. So how do you put multiple audio clips in your game? Well, actually, it's not that hard. So if you actually go here, you can make an object. You can instantiate an object given a component. All right. So we can say audio clip. Audio clip is the name of the class, that the way we're going to access our audio clips. All right. So just to give context, there's a difference between audio clips and audio source. Audio source is just like that thing that you can do way more than what you want. You could like play on a wake, you can loop, you can do whatever you want. There's like more options to do with audio source, but it requires an audio clip. Okay, so audio clip is that sound file, and audio source is just that place where you put the audio clip and tweak with it, like do some editings with the audio. But what if you just want to access the audio? So that's when we used only the audio clip object, and we could call like one audio clip success. All right, and then we could call another audio clip failure. Maybe, actually, it's pretty cool. If you're wondering what audio engine I'm using, like audio extension is called tab 9, you could access that in our GDC resources. And it just saves your time, as you saw. Anyways, getting back to the point, you wanted to know, how do we access the sound effect of success, like this success sound effect? How can we like tell this code that we specifically want this sound file? Serialized field. We could actually just use the import thing. So I'm just going to show you how to do it. So serialized field, serialized field. Serialized field, both of them, and then go back to your original code. And once you go down to the component, which is your code itself, which is over here in collision handler, you can see that, there's level delay. You can change the amount of level delay you want, like how much delay you want once you load the next level. And then there's also success and failure. So we could just drag the audio clip just like that. And basically, the code knows which audio clip you're trying to access. So it's a really cool way to do this. But I think that we're there already. Now, we need to actually use audio source to be able to play these things. We only have the audio clip by serializing it from the, from this code and then getting it from the inspector panel. But we need to, be able to play it. So we need an audio source. An audio source will help us do that. So let's get an audio source object. You can just call it audio source. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make a start method. And we need a start method because we need to access the component of audio source. So how do you do that is just take audio source, and it looks, the option they're giving me is just, if I'm not wrong, it's just get component. Yeah, it's just get component, and then audio source. And there you go. So basically what I did is just access the reference of this audio source from this object that you attach to from this script. And basically, it will contain all the data of this audio source object so that you could access its properties and methods. So what we're going to do, one thing definitely, is to basically... let's see what I'm doing wrong here. Yeah, so what we want to do first is we want to add the sound effect. I was kind of dumb because we already made a comment for this. So first thing you want to do, and actually this is a very simple thing, you just do audio source, which is the object that is referencing the audio source object class itself, which you can do dot, and you can access its properties. So we could do play one shot. What does one shot? What one shot really means is just gonna play it till the end, and that's it. But what do we want to play? Because we had to put something inside of this. Okay, even though my code is not telling me because I have an extension, we need to add something inside of this. Well, this is a start destroy method. So we want to add a failure, the failure audio clip, which is referencing from this thing, right? It's the boom sound effect. So let's do the same thing for the start success method, and instead of failure, change it to success. I want to say emotional damage because it's a very good meme, but maybe I won't say that. Anyways, let's actually start playing now. Let's see whether it works. I know you can hear it. Please, I'm really sorry, but you'll also still not be able to hear this if you're on YouTube. But yeah, trust me. My source will be trust me, bro. Anyways, let's actually see whether you're able to, whether I'm able to hear it. So if I get it. I get the sound effect, even though it kind of sounds dumb because you guys can hear it. I'm really sorry. Let's try to test out whether I can hear the success sound effect. I shouldn't have touched the obstacle. I'm a bad gamer. And funny, I'm a game developer. Yeah, so it's working. Now, there's something I didn't tell you, and it's... I know it feels like you guys are deaf. You're not deaf, and deaf is not a joke. The problem was I was able to hear that audio clip so many times. Okay, I was able to hear that thing so many times. And also, actually, one more thing. I was able to hear my spacebar. Like, I was able to hear my thrust while I was, like, hit. Like, while I was, like, hit everywhere, I was able to hear my thrust. So the idea is to make the game feel a bit more rhythmic in the flow, basically. To make it a bit more professional as well, you don't want to hear that thrust sound effect when you got, that success feeling, when you got that failure shot, because you're not really accessing the rocket itself, right? Because according to the code, I disabled the controls of the rocket. So basically what we want to do is we want to do audio source. And actually this is going to be before the play one shot, which is stop. Basically what stop does is that it's going to stop all the audios that are currently playing. Okay, and let's do that the same for this thing, start success. There you go. I'm going to end that code accordingly. So what I'm trying to do here is I just stopped all the audios that are playing in the environment while I play this one shot. Okay, so it stops all the audio first, and then it plays this one shot. Okay, and let's actually try this. Let's actually try playing this game now, and let's see whether I can hear my thrust or not. I can't hear it Now, another thing is I have fixed that, thrust thing, that thrust problem. However, whenever I hear, whenever I touch this obstacle, I hear that boom sound effect every time I touch the obstacle. And that shouldn't be the case. I should just hear that obstacle sound effect, that boom sound effect, that success sound effect only once. Because otherwise, that also ruins the player's experience. You want to hear that once, not all the time. Otherwise, it just feels unprofessional and basically, in other words, cringe. Okay, and you don't want to look like cringe if you're trying to impress your crush by sending this game to them and secretly giving a love letter inside. I don't know what you're doing this for, but you're also doing this for fun. So we want to try to make our game a bit more professional than ever. Okay, so let's see what we can do here. So for that, we can make a Boolean. Okay, this is where Booleans come in. I was talking a bit about Booleans. So I think let's start off with some sort of variable. Okay, and this variable is going to be a bool. I think yeah, it is bool, and we're gonna call it is transitioning. You'll understand what it means, but basically the idea is from the beginning you want to set it to false. Again, what is transitioning really is? It's just essentially that state. It's a state in the game where you're transitioning from dying in the game. So you process this start success thing, start destroy. This is a process of is transitioning. Okay, and once it is transitioning, then we go back. We invoke the reload level method, giving some sort of delay to it. We play some sort of sound effect. We stop the controls of the object. It's kind of that transitioning phase from stopping the controls and getting that feeling of like you lost, and then it's transitioning back you to that original level to play it again. So that's basically what the Boolean state is. We're going to use Booleans to make certain states in the game, to make things do certain things at certain phases in time. Sounds really confusing, but allow me to explain myself. Okay, so let's see what I did here. The idea is, and I voice cracked again, it's basically that if I say that if is transitioning, if the is transitioning is equal to true, again, equal is just comparing. So we need two equal signs here because we're trying to compare whether this is transitioning variable. If it's true, then we need to do some sort of certain task, which is, return. Now you might be asking, what is return? Like, void isn't a return statement, as we mentioned before. Remember, return is just like it's giving out some sort of value from this result, and that's it. Do not perform anything after that. Whatever is after return, don't perform that. You're done, and you can help out. You're just telling the programmer, like this computer, that hey, if is transitioning, if this variable, if it's true, then you return. It's like saying that hop out, get the heck out of here, and don't ever come back again. Unless you're false, unless your is transitioning is false, then do this. Okay, so it's a bit of a more of a conditioning thing. You could condition your code even more the way you want to do things, the way you want the program to interact with the game, to interact with you, based on its given status, based on its given condition in terms of Booleans. So right now, everything looks very confusing because I can't find my is transitioning. I can't find my is transitioning. Did I delete it? I did. Okay. So, all right. We forgot to do one more thing, which was to actually initialize the variable. So we just type is transitioning. And we set it to false. Remember, I set it to false because it's the game itself. When you start the game, it shouldn't be at a transitioning phase. And basically, whenever this is technically like an update method, anytime it's colliding, and it's trying to tell you that you should only perform this program if you're not in the transitioning phase. If you're in the phase, like let's say the start destroy sequence, the start success sequence, then you don't really want to perform these methods. You don't want to do it again to overlap the sound effects because you're going to start this method again and play the sound effect again and reload the level and make all that confusion happen. It just ruins the player experience. So we try to simplify the game by using Boolean. And that's why one of this idea that I want to talk about today is Boolean states. Boolean states in your game. And this is very helpful. Like, let's say like in other scenarios, like you have three phases in your game. Like let's say the countdown in the beginning, like 3, 2, 1, and then go, and then you have a phase where you died. There's a phase where you have to pause the game or something, or you're in a phase where you can heal yourself and no one else can attack you. So these are just some ideas that are coming out of my head. So you could make Boolean states. You could use Boolean as an advantage by making different states in your game. Like let's say is transitioning in this example, which was to it's the stage. It's a scenario where the game is processing itself to die or to basically go to the next level. It's like that process, that process in between that takes you to that next scene. And that's the transitioning phase that we're trying to talk about. And that's how we applied that as a benefit to our code. So let's actually try this. Let's actually play test this game and see whether it's working, whether I am not hearing multiple audio effects every time I hit this right after I die. So let's try it. So let's say that I've touched this. Maybe wait, hold on. There seems to be some sort of bug. So I think I might have forgotten to explain something else. Let's see. I can still hear it, so it's a bit weird. Oh, okay. Let me tell you one more thing. You don't need this. Maybe that was the reason. It's because this thing is already a Boolean. So if you just say if is transitioning, you're trying to imply that whenever this is true, then perform this statement, whatever's within the brackets. And you might also be wondering, why did I write my code like this? Wouldn't Unity realize this is a problem? Remember when I talk about white spaces? White spaces are all these unnecessary spaces in your code. You see that? That space over here, space over here and stuff. Well, what it does is it's just basically ignoring that. Technically, you could just put this in one line and basically it still works. However, we're separating different lines so that it's easier to read whatever you're doing in your program, whatever you're doing in your code. So that's really the thing I wanted to explain as well, is that you could still write it like this and it shouldn't be a problem. So I'm pretty sure that could have been a problem, the reason why it's not working. This could have primarily been the reason. So let's go back and let's check whether it's working or not. Let's just touch this thing. Yeah, so let's actually, try this again. Okay, so it seems like whenever I touch this thing over here, it's still doing that sound effect. Oh, it's kind of weird. That is odd. I have never seen a problem like this. Well, I've seen a similar problem like this last class, so yes, I am aware of what's wrong with this. But it shouldn't be a problem because I know why. I know why. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I know why. I know why. Oh my goodness. Oh my god. All right. So you basically, in the start destroy sequence, you need to set it to true. I am a Dumbo. I am always a Dumbo. Programmers are always a Dumbo. And it's all right. You get better from that. So I sound like this hippie right now trying to give advice about life. Anyways, what I try to say here is whenever you have Booleans, you need to manipulate them. Okay? Right now, before putting is transitioning equals to true, no, it's true, sorry. But before before setting these things to true without mentioning that, this was always false. So it always called this code and it never ever passed this. But the idea was that whenever I was in the start destroy sequence, I set the transitioning phase. Basically, in other words, when I set this to true, I am telling the computer that now I'm in the transitioning phase and I don't want to do more of this nonsense. Okay? So that should be solving the problem because that's the same idea for start success. Whenever I'm on the goal cube, I don't want to call this method again, just rather go through this statement, and when it says return basically implies that I'm not going to do anything that's right after this statement. Okay, return is really, really helpful if you just want to like say like, okay, that's it. Like if you want to tell your computer, if you're at this stage in life, like not life, but if you're at this stage in your computer or in your game, then don't do anything else. Like anything after return, don't do that. That's it. Like when I type return, you're done. Like get out. That's what it means. You know, like one of those you're going into those nightclubs and they gave your ID and it says, oh, it's not your ID. You know, you're not old enough. Then they say, okay, get out, and you fight, but you get out, and you end up getting out, which is very emotional. I'm really sorry. I have never been to a nightclub, but I've seen TV shows, so you could trust me 60%. And I don't trust me on that percentage. So you kind of get the point. Like, is transitioning is like saying whether you have that ID card in that nightclub, that example that I gave you. And basically, return is saying that if I don't have an ID card that has that appropriate amount of age, then the security guard will tell me, hey, you're not allowed here. Get out. And that's what return means. It's just that same idea. Try to connect them to each other because I'm trying to give some hilarious ideas so that it's stuck in your head forever. All right, so let's go back to the game and see whether it's working or not. And I'm also apologizing that this meeting is almost going over an hour. So let's try it. I'm not hearing it. I am not hearing it. Let's go. Okay, and a better example for me to just make sure is to perhaps maybe land on the goal pad and then touch the obstacle. So let's try doing that. That was a bad example. I'm very, very sorry. All right. I don't think I heard anything, but my point is it's not being expressed yet. Let's try doing this again. Okay. So in the second level, I didn't hear sound, and I'll tell you why. It's because I haven't applied the overrides to all the prefabs, and that's why I was trying to give an example of why sometimes you cannot hear audio in the next scene, but you hear audio in the first scene. It's because you never set overrides. Overrides contain all these things that you put in this instance, and you want to apply it to the prefab itself, so it applies to all the other instances in the other scenes in your Unity project. Okay, so that was one thing I wanted to explain why I wasn't able to hear audio in the second. And yeah, it's working. The second thing I wanted to say, it's working. It's working really perfect. It's working perfectly. So now it's time for us to override this thing, apply it to all, and once I play the game, so if I play the game seriously this time, assuming that I will not die because I'm the best person in the world, not all right, and I didn't hear that obstacle sound effect while I touched this windscreen. Let's touch an obstacle, and it seems like I'm not hearing anything. I don't know why I'm not hearing anything. It's probably because I have to debug on that. But the good part is that we got our audio working, and we used transitioning phase using Booleans, like making states in your game, to help solve that problem. So I think right now, before we end this meeting, and I debrief you guys with what I learned and what you guys also learned, that is more important. I'm sorry. There's one thing I need to tell you. Whenever you apply anything, like you apply like all that overrides, the sad part is that sadly, these things that you affected, the changes you made in these things, apparently they usually don't get affected. I think it should, but I don't know why. Maybe Unity's bullying me today, but that shouldn't really be a problem. It's also because I have both of them. I don't know why I have both of them. That is very sus. So let's try playing the game again. I think it was because I duplicated, but still. Let's try playing the game. Yeah, I hear it now. And I think it's because sometimes, if you can't hear, sometimes the issue could also be that you might have, added twice, like you added one component twice, and if one of them you did not add like those sound effects, and one of them you did, Unity has this problem. It gets a bug. It's not their fault as well. It's also our fault, confusing them that, hey, do you want the sound effect? Do you not want a sound effect? Like, what do you want, bro? And then they say that I will not put the sound effect. So just moral of the story is don't confuse Unity, okay? Treat Unity like your girlfriend, because you won't get it soon. I'm not trying to scare you guys. We're game developers. What did you expect? Anyways, but it worked, and I think now we can debrief to the assignments that you need to do for today. All right, so let's go to our assignments before I say thank you and you guys can go and have a good day. But don't leave, please don't leave. First of all, what you need to do is you need to make a total of 5 levels in your game. Okay, you could make 4 for now, but eventually that project that you're gonna need to submit, you need to have a minimum of 5 levels. Okay. And basically, what you're gonna do is, if you're gonna, submit, like if you're gonna share one of your works of your levels on Discord, you're actually gonna get 500 XP for just submitting one of them. So in total, if you just submit 5 of your levels, you're gonna get 500 times 5. Okay, and do that calculation in your head. It's 2,500. And you're gonna get a 200 XP bonus for each level. Okay. If you have major levels aesthetically pleasing. Now, if you're going to be asking me, how do I know specifically if your levels are aesthetically pleasing? I'll know that if you have put effort into it, okay? If you made your levels look a bit more gorgeous looking rather than dull, just like what my game looked like, then you're probably not going to get that additional 200 XP. But if you did it for all of your levels, you could get up to 1,000 XP just for doing that. So in total, you're going to get 2,500 XP plus 1,000 if you did all of them, giving you a total whopping number of 3,500 XP just for doing this one assignment. Okay? Another thing you want to do is just update your game and, watch the few GDC videos you did. If you did some stuff and you didn't do some stuff, you could use the timestamp as your benefit to save time. And then you also want to... if you submit any of the updates you added, for each update you share, and they have to be different, not the exact same thing, so don't spam, otherwise you'll get banned. You're gonna get 500 XP just for each submissions of updates you share in that submissions channel. So this week there's a lot of bonuses. I'm trying to give you a lot of bonuses because I want everyone to start leveling up and get cooler roles and more benefits with that as well. Okay, and then you also want to come up with your own rocket design. Okay, so try to make some. Today I was gonna expect teaching you guys how to do some modeling tips, but we ran out of time. I'm really sorry about that. But that will happen in the next class. So I'll be teaching you some tips when you're trying to 3D model your designs. So for now, try to have some sort of rough idea in your head. Maybe sketch it out, draw it via paint or something, and you can share that, and you'll get 1,500 XP just for sharing that. Okay, and maybe give a slight brief explanation if you want to give it. Watch the YouTube video. Check out the Instagram post if you didn't. I think this time was about how to make a good game or something, all the percentage, the balance in video gaming. It's very good. It's very informative. And if you found it really helpful, that's good. And finally, you're also going to get, I forgot to mention here, you will get 3,000 XP as well. Additionally, if you rate our server on Discord. So if you want to know how to do that, I'll just teach you how to do that quickly. It's by going to this place called... I don't know why did I say call. Just go to server bump and basically click on this link on Discord. Okay, and that should take you. Oops, that should take you. That should take you to this website here. And basically, what you want to do is you want to rate this server. I don't know. I think for you guys, you'll be able to rate it. I can't rate it right now because I'm not in the server. I'm in another account. It's my cousin's account. But once you've logged into Discord with the same Discord account you have, you're gonna have an option to rate this server that's linked onto Discord, and that's just gonna help us find more users and basically let them join the server as well. Okay, so with your help, you're gonna help us find more people in the server, and in addition to that, you'll be given 3,000 Me6 XP and perhaps some GDC coins so that you could purchase some stuff in our coin store. All right, so let me just, go back to intermission. All right, so that's basically it for today. Thank you for joining, everyone, and I hope you guys have a really great day. So I'm going to end it out here, and we'll see you guys next week. Stay creative, and peace.